Have you ever caught yourself thinking, I'll start tomorrow? Maybe you've said, I'll begin when I feel more confident, or I'll wait until the timing is perfect. We all do this. We wait. We delay. We tell ourselves that the future will be easier, that one day we'll suddenly wake up ready. But here's the truth. That perfect moment you're waiting for, it doesn't exist. And while you wait, life keeps moving. Opportunities pass. Dreams slip further away. And the more you wait, the heavier that waiting feels, until it becomes normal, until it becomes your life. But what if I told you there's another way? What if the future you want, the confident you, the fluent you, the stronger you, doesn't arrive because you wait for it, but because you fight for it? In this journey together, we're going to uncover why waiting never works, why clarity only comes through action, and why belief in yourself is the single most powerful tool you can carry. This isn't about being perfect. It isn't about having it all figured out. It's about starting, even when you're scared. It's about taking one step, even when you feel unsure. And it's about discovering that the future isn't something that happens to you. It's something you build, one choice at a time. So, if you've ever felt stuck, if you've ever wanted to speak English with confidence but kept waiting for the right time, this is for you. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll see that the only thing standing between the life you dream of and the life you live today is one simple decision: to stop waiting and to begin. This afternoon, I found myself sitting quietly by the window with a warm cup of tea in my hands. The sky was slowly changing colors, the light shifting in soft shades across the horizon. There was nothing dramatic happening, no big events, no rush, no sound of applause. Just me, a quiet room, the stillness of the air, and that gentle reminder that sometimes the simplest moments carry the deepest meaning. It struck me how often we run through life, waiting for the big victories to make us feel alive. We imagine that happiness will arrive with a grand achievement, a promotion, a major milestone. But sitting there, watching the light move, I realized again that peace often arrives in the small pauses we allow ourselves. A notebook nearby, a calm breath, the sound of leaves brushing against the window, that was enough to feel whole. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes life doesn't ask us to chase more. Sometimes it simply invites us to notice what is already here. And when we pause long enough, even ordinary things, a sip of tea, the weight of your breath, the stillness in your body, can become extraordinary. But here's the thing. It's easy to forget this. Many of us measure our days by productivity, by results, by how much we accomplish. And yet, the truth is that meaning doesn't always come dressed as success. Meaning can be hidden in those unspoken, uncelebrated moments that no one else sees. That's why I want to share something important with you today. It's about what I call the quiet fight for your future. Not the loud fight, not the dramatic one with trumpets and speeches. No, the everyday fight, the small, invisible one that happens when you get up even though you're tired. When you study one more word of English even though your mind feels heavy. When you choose to turn away from another distraction and instead move a tiny step closer to your dream. That fight matters. In fact, it may matter more than anything else. Think about it. The world often teaches us to look for big turning points, those magical moments where life changes overnight. But the truth is, your future isn't built in lightning bolts. It's built in whispers, in invisible choices, in small acts that no one claps for. And yet, those invisible choices carry weight. They are shaping who you are becoming. They are shaping the kind of life you will live tomorrow. I wonder sometimes how many people give up quietly, not because they didn't care about their dreams, but because the future felt too far away. It's easy to tell yourself, I'll try harder next month. I'll change when I'm ready. I'll start chasing that dream someday. But someday is tricky. It doesn't arrive in fireworks. It arrives silently, one soft step at a time. And the danger is this. If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you may not notice how much of your future has already been written by the choices you make today. So let me ask you gently, what are you building right now, even if you can't see it yet? Because every choice, small or big, is casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Not just the obvious choices like moving to another country, switching careers, or going back to school. I'm talking about the daily ones. Do I scroll late into the night, or do I close my eyes and rest? Do I speak kindly to myself, or do I tear myself down with criticism? Do I keep the promise I made to myself this morning, or do I break it quietly when no one is watching? That's where the fight truly lives. Not in the spotlight, but in silence. Not in the big announcements, but in the daily rhythms. And if you're listening to this right now, maybe you've felt that fight. Maybe you know the weight of waking up early when the bed is too warm, or turning down something that gives quick comfort but leaves you with long-term regret. Maybe you've done the harder thing, not because you felt like it, but because you trusted that your future self would be grateful. And let's be honest, it's not always easy. Some days, it doesn't even feel worth it. You might look at your effort and wonder, why bother? Nothing is changing yet. What's the point? But here's the truth. You are not stuck. You are building. And every effort you make, no matter how small, is part of the fight for a freer, stronger, more peaceful tomorrow. You may not see the results today. You may not feel different next week. But one day, you will look back and realize something powerful. You didn't quit on yourself. You kept showing up, even when no one clapped. And because of that, your future opened up in ways you couldn't yet imagine. So maybe tonight or this morning, whenever you're listening, take a pause and ask yourself, What kind of life am I quietly fighting for? And what can I do today, just today, to honor that future? It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. Because this fight, your fight, isn't loud. It isn't flashy. And it isn't about winning applause. It's about showing up for yourself, one small step at a time. And every step counts. There's something I've noticed about comfort. At first, it feels like safety. You tell yourself, I'll just rest a little longer. I'll skip that one task. I'll give myself a break today. And sometimes, that's exactly what you need. You're tired. You're overwhelmed. You need to pause. But here's the tricky part. What begins as rest can slowly turn into avoidance. One day off turns into 3. One missed habit stretches into 2 weeks. And without even realizing it, comfort becomes your new routine. It feels soft. It feels safe. It feels warm, like a blanket you don't want to leave. But here's the truth. It doesn't move you forward. And the longer you stay there, the heavier it becomes to stand up again. I've been there myself. I've had seasons when I told myself, I'll get back on track next week. But when next week came, I still felt behind. And because I felt behind, I didn't even try. That's how comfort works. It whispers gently. Not today, maybe later. And before you know it, later has stolen weeks, months, even years. Comfort can be sneaky like that. It tells you to pause when what you really need is to begin. It promises rest, but often delivers regret. Maybe you know this feeling. You wanted to study more. You wanted to exercise. You wanted to eat better. You wanted to speak up, show up, try harder. But instead, comfort whispered in your ear, not today. And now maybe you look around and wonder, where did the time go? What happened to the version of me that was full of energy and dreams? Here's the gentle reminder. Nothing happened to that version of you. They're still here. They've just been sleeping under a blanket of comfort, waiting for you to wake them up. Sometimes, yes, you do need to rest, but you also need to be honest with yourself. Ask, is this real rest, or is it avoidance? Am I recharging, or am I hiding? Because every time you say, maybe later, your future pays the price. I don't say this to make you feel guilty. I say it because your future is worth more than endless postponing. Comfort is not evil. It's part of being human. We all want peace, safety, ease. But here's the truth. Deep peace doesn't come from staying comfortable. It comes from growing through discomfort. Think about it. When do you feel truly proud of yourself? When you gave in to ease, or when you pushed through a little difficulty? True confidence, true rest, true joy. These don't come from hiding. They come from stretching, from keeping your word to yourself, from choosing growth even when it's uncomfortable. Let me give you a picture. Imagine your dream is a garden. Comfort is like lying in the sun next to it. It feels warm. It feels relaxing, but your garden doesn't water itself. And if you lie there too long, the soil dries up, the plants wilt, and one day you'll look over and realize something painful. The dream you cared about didn't fail because you weren't capable. It faded because you neglected it. That hurts, but it's also empowering because it means you don't have to wait for perfect motivation to return. You don't have to feel fully ready. You don't have to undo all the days you delayed. You just have to pick up the watering can and start again. One action, one shift, one small movement forward. That's how you reclaim your future. Not by battling comfort, but by choosing courage, one small decision at a time. You can still rest. In fact, rest is important. But let your rest be true. Let it renew you. Let it give you strength to grow, not drag you deeper into delay. So maybe today, take a look at your own life. Where are you sitting in comfort when you could be taking a step forward? Where are you telling yourself, not today, when today is exactly the chance you've been given? No shame, no judgment, just awareness. Because once you see it clearly, you get to choose again. And every time you choose again, you remind yourself, I am capable of moving forward. I am capable of honoring my future. I don't have to stay stuck. That small act of awareness, followed by one step of courage, is what begins to transform everything. Because here's the quiet truth. Comfort will always call to you, but so will your future. And only one of them will leave you with peace. So today, I ask you gently, which one will you listen to? Have you ever noticed how heavy guilt feels? It doesn't just sit in your mind, it sits in your body. Your shoulders slump, your chest feels tight. You replay old mistakes like broken records. And every time you think about moving forward, guilt whispers, who are you to try again? You already failed once. It's like walking with a backpack full of stones. Every regret, every mistake, every broken promise you made to yourself, it all gets stuffed inside. And after a while, you don't just feel tired. You start believing the weight belongs to you. You start thinking, maybe I'm just someone who always fails. But here's the truth. You're not defined by the stones in your backpack. You're defined by what you choose to do with them. Think about this. Guilt has a strange power. On one hand, it reminds you of your values. You feel guilty because deep down, you care. You wanted better for yourself. You expected more. That means there's still a voice inside you that knows you're capable of more. That's the good side of guilt. It points you back to your truth. But the dark side of guilt? It traps you. It tells you that because you fell once, you're not allowed to rise again. It convinces you that your past failure cancels out your future chance. And that is simply not true. Falling is human. Failing is human. But staying down, that's a choice. I remember once skipping a project I had promised myself I would finish. The deadline passed. The chance slipped away. And for weeks afterward, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because the project was gone, but because I had broken trust with myself. That's what guilt really is. The sting of broken trust. And here's where the shift happens. Trust can be rebuilt, slowly, steadily, one small promise at a time. You don't need to erase every mistake. You don't need to carry them forever either. What you need is forgiveness for yourself. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means looking at your past self and saying, "You made a mistake, but you are still worthy of trying again. You slipped, but you are still capable of standing up. You're human, and humans learn by falling." Think about a child learning to walk. They wobble, they fall, they stumble again and again. But no one says, "You fell 3 times, so you're not allowed to walk anymore." That would be absurd. Instead, we cheer for them. We celebrate their attempts. We know every fall is part of learning. So why don't we give ourselves the same grace? Why do we treat our own mistakes as final sentences instead of stepping stones? Here's the shift. Guilt doesn't have to chain you. It can guide you. It can remind you of what matters, then invite you to begin again. Imagine taking off that heavy backpack, one stone at a time. You name it. This was a time I quit too early. Then you set it down. You name another. This was a habit I didn't keep. And you set it down too. You don't deny them. You don't erase them. But you refuse to keep carrying them into your future. Because here's the truth. Your future doesn't want your guilt. It wants your courage. It wants your energy. It wants your willingness to rise again. And you don't need to fix everything overnight. You just need to choose one promise to keep today. Just one. Maybe it's 5 minutes of reading. Maybe it's drinking water instead of soda. Maybe it's writing down one small goal. Whatever it is, when you follow through, you prove something powerful. I can trust myself again. That feeling, that spark of trust, is what rebuilds your confidence. And with every small promise you keep, the weight of guilt grows lighter. So let's ask honestly, what promises have you been avoiding because guilt told you it's too late? Where have you been carrying stones you don't need anymore? Because the truth is, guilt loses its power the moment you take action. Guilt says, "You failed before." Action answers, "Yes, but I'm trying again now." And every try again moment matters more than every fall behind you. Maybe you've been stuck in regret for weeks, months, even years. That doesn't erase your worth. That doesn't erase your chance. As long as you are here, breathing, listening, you are not finished. Forgive yourself. Not because the past doesn't matter, but because your future matters more. And when guilt whispers, "Who are you to start again?" you can smile gently and say, "I am someone who refuses to stay down." That's strength. That's courage. That's the kind of self-trust that will carry you forward. So remember this. Your past mistakes are not prisons. They are teachers. Learn the lesson. Carry the wisdom. Leave the weight. Then step forward, lighter, freer, ready to live the life guilt once told you wasn't possible. Let's talk about something that often hides in the background of our lives: shame. Shame is different from guilt. Guilt says, I did something wrong. But shame goes deeper. It whispers, I am wrong. I am not enough. And that is one of the heaviest lies you can carry. When shame takes over, it feels like you're standing in front of a mirror that shows only your flaws. Every mistake looks bigger. Every weakness looks permanent. You start believing that you're broken in a way that can't be fixed. But here's the truth. Shame lies. You are not your mistakes. You are not your flaws. You are not broken beyond repair. You are human, and being human means being imperfect and still worthy of love, respect, and growth. Think of shame like a fog. It covers your vision so you can't see clearly. You look ahead, but everything feels blurry. You look at yourself, and all you notice are shadows. But the fog doesn't mean the sun disappeared. The sun is still there. Your worth is still there. You just need to clear the fog. So how do you do that? First, by recognizing that shame thrives in silence. Shame grows stronger when you hide it, when you keep it locked inside. But the moment you bring it into the light, by admitting it to yourself, by talking about it with someone safe, it starts to lose its grip. Think about times when you've heard someone share their struggles. Maybe they admitted they failed, or they felt insecure, or they made a mistake. Did you judge them harshly? Or did you feel compassion, maybe even relief, thinking, I'm not the only one? That's the power of sharing. It reminds us that being imperfect is not the exception. It's the rule. Second, you fight shame by rewriting the story you tell yourself. Shame says, you failed, so you are a failure. But the truth is, failing at something only means you tried. It means you stepped into the arena, while others stayed on the sidelines. That's not weakness. That's courage. Failure is an event, not an identity. Imagine if every inventor gave up after the first mistake. Imagine if every musician quit after playing the wrong note. The world would have no progress, no art, no breakthroughs. Why? Because everything worth creating is born through trial and error, through mistakes, through persistence. So the next time shame says, you're not enough, answer back, I am becoming, I am learning, I am still on my way. Another way to break free from shame is through small acts of self-respect. Shame convinces you that you don't deserve care or effort. It says, why bother? You'll just fail again. But when you choose to show up for yourself, by eating something nourishing, by resting, by speaking kindly to yourself, you prove shame wrong. Every small act of respect is like planting a seed of dignity. And when you water those seeds day after day, they grow into confidence. You might be wondering, but Sophie, what if people really did judge me? What if I was rejected or laughed at? That pain is real. But remember this: People's opinions are not permanent labels. Someone might see only one part of you, the part that stumbled, and make their judgment. But that is not the whole of you. They don't see your resilience. They don't see your potential. They don't see the chapters of your story still unwritten. And here's the truth. The people who matter, the ones worth walking with, will not define you by your lowest moment. They will stand with you as you rise again. So let's do something together right now. Place your hand on your heart. Feel it beating. That steady rhythm is proof. You are alive. You are still here. You are not finished. Whisper to yourself, I am not my shame. I am worthy of growth. I am allowed to begin again. Because the real freedom comes when you stop letting shame silence you. When you stop letting it convince you that you are unworthy. You are worthy, right here, right now. Not when you're perfect, not when you've achieved everything, but today, as you are. Shame wants you to stay small, hidden, afraid. But your life is too valuable for that. You were not born to shrink. You were born to grow, to rise, to shine, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect. So the next time shame tries to tell you that you're not enough, pause and remember, you don't have to believe that voice. You can choose a different one. You can choose the voice of truth, the one that says, I am more than my mistakes. I am learning. I am becoming. And that is enough. And step by step, as you practice this, the fog of shame will lift. You'll see yourself more clearly, not as broken, but as becoming, not as unworthy, but as human. And human is more than enough. Let's talk about another voice that often shapes our lives without us even realizing it. Fear. Fear is powerful. Sometimes it protects us. If you step into the road and a car is coming, fear makes you jump back. That's useful. But often, fear doesn't protect you. It traps you. It keeps you from trying, from moving forward, from living the life you want. Fear whispers, what if you fail? What if you look foolish? What if they laugh at you? What if you're not good enough? And when you listen to those whispers, you start building walls around your own life. You stay in your comfort zone, safe but stuck. Here's the problem. Fear will always give you a reason not to try. Always. If you wait until you feel no fear before you take action, you will wait forever. So the real question is not, how can I get rid of fear? The real question is, how can I move forward even while I feel afraid? Think about this. Every person you admire, every story of courage you've ever heard, began with someone feeling fear, but choosing to act anyway. The soldier who steps onto the battlefield feels fear. The student who raises her hand in class feels fear. The parent who admits, I don't know the answer, but I'll try to figure it out with you, feels fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is walking forward with fear beside you. I want you to picture fear like a loud passenger in your car. It yells, turn back, don't go there. It's dangerous. You can't throw fear out of the car completely. It's going to ride along. But here's the key. You don't have to give fear the steering wheel. You don't let it decide where you're going. You can say, "Okay, fear, I hear you, but I'm still driving forward." Now, let's be honest. Fear feels convincing because it often dresses up like wisdom. It says, "I'm just protecting you. I'm keeping you safe." But safe is not the same as alive. Safe is not the same as fulfilled. Sometimes the greatest risk is staying where you are, never trying, never stretching, never growing. So how do we push back against fear? One way is to shrink the size of the step. Fear gets loud when we imagine the whole mountain. "I could never climb that. It's too high." But if you focus only on the next step, just the next foothold, it suddenly feels possible. You don't need the courage for the entire journey. You only need the courage for the step right in front of you. Another way is to reframe fear as a signal, not a stop sign. Fear often points towards something important. Think about it. You don't feel fear about things that don't matter. You feel fear when something is meaningful, when it could change your life, when it could expose your heart, when it could shape your future. So instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask, "What if this is the path to growth? What if this fear is proof that I'm stepping into something that matters?" Let me give you a picture. Imagine standing at the edge of a diving board, high above the pool. Your knees shake. Your heart races. Fear screams, "Don't jump." But deep down, you know. The only way to feel the rush of water, the thrill of freedom, the joy of saying, "I did it," is to leap. Fear never disappears completely, but every time you choose to jump anyway, fear gets smaller. Your courage gets stronger. I also want you to remember, failure is not the enemy. Fear tells you that failing means you're finished, but failing is simply part of learning. Every person who has ever succeeded has failed, probably more times than you can count. Think of a baby learning to walk. Do they fall? Yes, again and again. But does anyone look at that baby and say, "What a failure. Better give up. Crawling is safer"? Of course not. We cheer because falling is proof they're trying. And soon enough, those wobbly steps turn into confident strides. You are no different. Every stumble is not a shameful mark. It's a sign of progress. Now, I want you to pause for a moment and think of one thing fear has been holding you back from. Maybe it's speaking up in English. Maybe it's applying for a job. Maybe it's telling someone how you really feel. Picture that thing right now. Now whisper to yourself, "Fear is loud, but I am still in control. I can move forward even with fear beside me." Because here's the truth. You will never reach your full potential if you let fear be the driver of your life. You are capable of more than you think. Fear will always knock at the door, but you don't have to invite it in. Every time you step forward, even with shaking hands and a racing heart, you grow stronger. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you prove to yourself, I can do this. Fear may stay, but it doesn't have to stay in charge. So keep driving forward, keep stepping, keep choosing courage, because the life you long for is on the other side of fear. Let's turn now to something that seems harmless but can quietly control your life. Comparison. Comparison is everywhere. We compare our looks, our jobs, our money, our relationships, even our English skills. And at first, it feels natural. After all, we live surrounded by other people. But the problem is that comparison often steals our joy. Think about it. You wake up feeling good about yourself. Maybe you're proud. You studied English yesterday, or you exercised, or you cooked something nice. But then you open your phone. You see someone else speaking fluently, traveling to new countries, or living a life that looks perfect. Suddenly, your own achievements feel small. That's what comparison does. It takes away your sense of enough. And here's the truth. Comparison is unfair because it never shows the whole picture. You're comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. You see their shining moment, but not their struggles, not their doubts, not their hidden failures. Imagine watching a movie. You only see the best takes, the perfect shots after many mistakes were cut out. Life is like that. Social media especially is like that. People share their best angles, their biggest successes, their brightest smiles. But they don't always show the lonely nights, the tears, the fear, the times they wanted to give up. So when you compare yourself, you're not comparing truth to truth. You're comparing your raw reality to someone else's edited story. And that will always make you feel less than you really are. Comparison also distracts you from your own path. Everyone's journey is different. Maybe your classmate learns English faster, but maybe you're learning patience, resilience, or creativity in ways they are not. Maybe someone else already has what you dream of, but maybe you're building a foundation that will last longer. Life is not a race where everyone starts at the same line and runs toward the same finish. Life is more like a garden. Each person plants different seeds. Some flowers bloom quickly, some take longer, some are small but beautiful, some are tall and strong. But each has its own place, its own purpose. So here's what I want you to remember. Your value does not decrease just because someone else shines. Someone else's success does not mean your failure. There is enough space for all of us to grow, for all of us to succeed. Now, how do we fight comparison? First, by practicing gratitude. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you lack to what you already have. When you list your blessings, your health, your family, your progress, even your breath, it reminds you that your life is already full of gifts. Gratitude is like putting on new glasses. Suddenly, what looked small becomes precious. Second, by measuring progress against yourself, not against others. Ask, Am I better than I was yesterday? Am I learning even slowly? That's the only fair measurement. For example, maybe yesterday you couldn't introduce yourself in English without hesitation. Today you can. That's progress. Maybe last month you didn't have the courage to speak up in class, but today you raised your hand. That's growth. Your journey is not about being the best. It's about becoming better than you were before. Third, by cheering for others instead of envying them. This might sound strange, but it's powerful. When you see someone succeed, instead of thinking, "Why not me?" try thinking, "Good for them." Their success shows what's possible. If they can do it, maybe I can too. Because here's the secret. Envy shrinks you, but encouragement expands you. When you celebrate others, you create a bigger space of possibility for them and for yourself. Let me tell you a story. A group of runners were in a race. One runner stumbled and fell. Instead of racing ahead, several of the others stopped, lifted him up, and crossed the finish line together. They understood. The goal is not always to beat everyone else. Sometimes the goal is to move forward together. Life can be like that. You don't have to see others only as competition. You can see them as companions, fellow travelers, people who show you what's possible. And here's one more truth. Comparison steals your energy, but focus builds it. Every moment you spend comparing yourself is a moment you could spend practicing, improving, growing. Imagine if you took the time you spend scrolling, wishing, envying, and instead used it to take one small action toward your dream. How much further would you be? So let's pause here. I want you to think of one area in your life where comparison has been loud. Maybe it's language learning. Maybe it's your career. Maybe it's your appearance. Hold that thought for a moment. Now say quietly to yourself, "Their journey is theirs. My journey is mine. I don't have to be them. I only need to be me, growing step by step." Because in the end, the only person you need to compete with is your past self. You don't need to be the best in the world. You just need to be the best version of you. So next time comparison starts whispering, remember, your worth is not measured by how you stack up against others. It's measured by how true you are to your own path. Your story is not too late. Your pace is not too slow. Your progress is not too small. It is yours, and that makes it enough. There's something we don't always talk about when it comes to dreams, goals, and building a future. It's not failure. It's not even fear. It's something quieter. Something that sneaks in so softly we barely notice it. Delay. Delay doesn't always look like giving up. Sometimes it looks like good intentions. It looks like saying, "I'll start tomorrow. I'll try harder next week. I'll get serious once I feel ready." It feels safe. It feels gentle. But if you're not careful, delay becomes a trap. One day of delay becomes two. Two become a week. A week becomes months. And then suddenly, You look back and realize you've been waiting for years. I know that feeling. Maybe you've said, I'll practice English properly when my schedule is less busy. Or, I'll apply for that job when I'm more confident. Or, I'll start working out when I have more energy. But here's the truth. Life rarely clears a perfect space for you to begin. The busyness, the doubts, the fatigue, they don't disappear. You have to start with them, not after them. The psychologist Angela Duckworth studied what makes people successful, not just talented people, but people who actually reach their goals. Her answer was grit, not genius, not luck. Grit. The ability to keep showing up, even when it's boring, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it. And she said something that really struck me. The opposite of grit is not quitting. The opposite of grit is drifting. Think about that. Drifting doesn't look like failure. It looks like staying busy, scrolling on your phone, always saying you'll get serious later. You feel like you're still in the game because you haven't quit. But in reality, you're slowly floating away from your goals. Drifting is dangerous because it feels comfortable. It doesn't demand a decision. You don't have to face your fear of failing, because technically you haven't even started. But here's the cost. Every day you delay, you're teaching your brain a story. The story that maybe this dream isn't so important. The story that maybe you're not the kind of person who follows through. But you are. You just need to break the pattern of delay. Let's test something. Imagine if 6 months ago you had started practicing English for just 10 minutes a day. Just 10 minutes. Where would you be now? You'd have over 30 hours of practice. You'd feel more confident, more fluent, more alive in your learning. Now flip the question. If you start today, even small, where could you be in 6 months? That's the cost of delay, but also the gift of action. Delay is heavy. It keeps you in a cycle of waiting, wishing, regretting. But action is light. Even the smallest action creates energy. It tells your brain, I'm moving forward, I'm capable, I'm in the fight. So how do we break free from delay? First, by lowering the bar. Delay often hides behind perfectionism. You think you need a full plan, the perfect tools, or a burst of motivation before starting, but you don't. You just need to begin, messy, small, unprepared. Because action builds clarity. Don't wait until you feel ready to speak English. Start with one sentence. Don't wait until you know the perfect workout routine. Do 10 push-ups. Don't wait until you've mapped your entire future. Take the next step in front of you. Second, by making it daily. Delay grows when we push things into someday. So shrink your focus to today. Ask yourself, what's one thing I can do today for my future self? Just one, not 10, not everything. One. Because here's the magic. Small actions repeat, and when they repeat, they become habits, and habits create transformation. Third, by forgiving yourself when you drift. Delay happens. We all drift. What matters is noticing and gently steering yourself back. You don't need shame. You don't need guilt. You just need to say, okay, I drifted, but I'm choosing again. I'm returning to my fight. It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be a soft yes, a quiet promise to yourself. Let me share a picture. Imagine your life as a river. Delay is when you stop paddling and just let the water carry you. You're still moving, but not where you want to go. And if you don't pick up the paddle, the current will decide your path. But the moment you grab the oar and make even one small stroke, you begin steering again. That's how it works. One action is enough to break the spell of delay. So today, I want you to ask yourself gently, where have I been delaying? What dream have I been pushing into later? And then, more importantly, what is one small thing I can do today? Not tomorrow, not next week, but today, to move toward it. It could be as simple as writing one page, speaking one English sentence out loud, sending one email, taking one walk. Because the truth is, you don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to know all the steps. You just need to take the next one. And here's the encouragement I want you to carry. Delay is not destiny. You haven't ruined your future by waiting. It's still here. It's still yours. It's waiting for you to remember that starting small is still starting. You don't need to prepare forever. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You can begin now, with what you have, where you are, as you are. Because your future doesn't need a perfect version of you. It just needs a present version of you. There's a phrase I often think about. Clarity comes from action, not thought. We like to believe that if we just think long enough, plan carefully enough, wait patiently enough, the path will become clear. We imagine clarity as a light that suddenly turns on in our minds, showing us exactly where to go. But most of the time, clarity doesn't arrive while you're sitting still. It arrives when you start moving. Think about walking through fog. If you stand still, the fog doesn't lift. You can't see further. But if you take a step, then another, the path slowly reveals itself. The view changes because you changed your position. That's what action does. It shifts your perspective. Many learners, maybe even you, tell themselves, once I feel more confident, I'll start speaking English. Or, once I know more grammar, I'll practice with people. But confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after. Every confident speaker you've ever heard began as someone who was unsure, nervous, maybe even embarrassed. What made them confident wasn't waiting. It was trying, failing, learning, repeating, and slowly realizing, I can do this. The same is true for every area of life. We want to feel ready before we begin. But readiness is not a feeling you wait for, it's a result of starting. So the question isn't, am I ready? The question is, am I willing to begin, even if I feel unready? Let me share a small story. A student once told me she dreamed of becoming a nurse in another country, but she kept delaying her English practice because she felt she wasn't improving fast enough. She wanted the perfect system before she started applying for exams. One day, she decided to just try a small practice test. She didn't score very high, but that one action changed everything. She saw what she needed to study. She saw her weak spots clearly, and suddenly the path felt less overwhelming because now she wasn't guessing, she was learning from experience. That's the power of action. It replaces confusion with information. It replaces fear with feedback. Here's another truth. Action creates momentum. You know the feeling of pushing a heavy door? At first it doesn't budge. You push harder, still nothing. But then it moves just a little, and suddenly the weight feels lighter. One small movement creates more movement. That's how goals work. Starting feels impossible, but once you do one small action, your brain shifts. It thinks, I've started. I can keep going. You don't need to run the whole marathon today. You just need to put on your shoes. You don't need to speak English for an hour. You just need to say one phrase. You don't need to write a book. You just need to write one paragraph. The small step is the seed. Action is the water. And over time, seeds grow. Now, let's talk about fear, because fear is often the reason we delay action. Fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear of being judged. But here's the interesting thing. Action is also the antidote to fear. When you take action, even tiny, fear has less room to grow. Fear feeds on imagination, on the scary pictures in your head of what might go wrong. But when you act, you replace imagination with reality. And reality is usually less frightening than the monster you created in your mind. I'll give you a simple example. Maybe you've been afraid to speak English with a native speaker. In your head, you imagine them laughing, judging, or walking away. But then one day, you try. Maybe they smile. Maybe they patiently listen. Maybe they even encourage you. Suddenly, the fear shrinks. Not because you defeated it in your mind, but because you faced it in real life. Fear hates reality. That's why action works. So, if you've been waiting for clarity, for confidence, for readiness, let this be your reminder. Those things don't arrive before you act. They arrive because you act. And remember, action doesn't need to be dramatic. It can be quiet, small, almost invisible to others. But to you, it matters. Reading one page is action. Saying one phrase aloud is action. Watching one English video and repeating the words is action. Each small step tells your brain, this is who I am. I'm a person who moves forward. And with repetition, those steps add up. Step by step, the fog clears. Step by step, confidence grows. Step by step, you become the person you dreamed of being. Let me ask you something. If not now, when? If not you, who? If you're waiting for the perfect moment, understand this. The perfect moment is created, not discovered. You make it perfect by choosing to act in it. So today, take one small step. Don't overthink it. Don't wait until it feels grand or special. Just choose one action for your future self. It doesn't need to impress anyone. It just needs to move you. Because here's the truth. Progress is not built on thoughts. It's built on actions. Dreams are not achieved by waiting. They're achieved by doing. And you, yes, you are capable of beginning right now, not later, not someday, now. Your life, your growth, your future, it's waiting. And it's waiting not for a perfect plan, but for your first step. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on everything we've talked about so far. We've explored why waiting for the perfect moment doesn't work, why clarity comes through action, and why small steps matter more than giant leaps. We've talked about fear and how the only way to shrink fear is to face it. And now, as we come to the end of this journey, there's one more truth I want to leave with you. Your life is shaped by what you believe. Belief is like the lens through which you see the world. Two people can face the same challenge, but their beliefs will decide how they respond. One person thinks, "This is too hard, I'll never succeed." And they stop before they even begin. Another person thinks, "This is hard, but I can learn, I can grow, I can keep trying." And they find a way forward. Which one do you want to be? The belief you choose matters more than your current skill, more than your background, even more than your circumstances. Why? Because belief shapes action, and action shapes results. If you believe you're not good enough, you won't act. And if you don't act, you can't grow. But if you believe you're capable, even if you're not perfect, even if you still make mistakes, you'll keep moving. And that movement creates growth. Think about learning English. Some people say, "I'm too old, I'll never be fluent." And because they believe that, they never give themselves the chance. Others say, "It might take me time, but every word I learn brings me closer." That belief pushes them to practice, and little by little, they improve. Belief is powerful. But here's the secret. You don't need to believe you can do everything right now. You just need to believe in the next step. Instead of saying, "I'll never be fluent," try saying, "I can learn this one phrase today." Instead of saying, "I'm not confident," say, "I can practice for 5 minutes today." Small, believable steps create momentum, and momentum builds confidence. So what do you believe about yourself? Do you believe you're stuck? Or do you believe you're learning? Do you believe your mistakes define you? Or do you believe your mistakes teach you? The choice is yours. And it's not just about English, it's about life. If you believe you're powerless, you won't try. If you believe you have choices, you'll find them. If you believe change is impossible, you'll stay the same. But if you believe growth is possible, you'll start taking action. And remember this: belief is not something you're born with. It's something you practice. Every time you take action, even a small one, you prove to yourself, I can. And the more times you prove it, the stronger your belief becomes. That's why action and belief work together like partners. Action builds belief, and belief fuels more action. Think of belief like a muscle. If you never use it, it stays weak. But if you train it, even with small weights, it grows stronger. So, how do you build the muscle of belief? Start by noticing your self-talk. What do you say to yourself when you make a mistake? Do you say, I'm terrible, I'll never get this? Or do you say, okay, I didn't get it this time, but I'll try again? That small shift in language changes everything. Second, celebrate small wins. Don't wait until you're fluent to feel proud. Celebrate the first time you order coffee in English. Celebrate when you understand a sentence in a song. Celebrate when you watch a video without subtitles. Each win is evidence. I am growing. Third, surround yourself with encouragement. The voices around you influence the voice inside you. If you listen to people who only complain, you'll believe life is hopeless. If you listen to people who grow, who practice, who try, you'll start to believe you can too. And finally, take action, even when you don't feel ready, because action is proof. Proof creates belief, and belief changes your life. Now, let's bring this full circle. At the beginning, we talked about waiting. How many people spend their whole lives waiting? Waiting for confidence, waiting for opportunity, waiting for the perfect moment. But the truth is, you don't need to wait. You don't need to be perfect. You don't even need to feel ready. You just need to begin. When you begin, clarity will follow. Confidence will follow. Belief will follow. But they won't come first. You create them by moving. So today, ask yourself, what do I believe? Do I believe in my excuses? Or do I believe in my potential? Do I believe in fear? Or do I believe in growth? Do I believe in waiting? Or do I believe in action? Because whatever you believe will guide your steps. And I'll tell you one last thing. No matter where you are right now, no matter how slow your progress feels, no matter how many mistakes you've made, you are not behind. You are on your path. And the fact that you're here, learning, means you've already taken steps that others are still waiting to take. That's something to be proud of. So believe in yourself enough to keep going. Believe in yourself enough to start again, even when it's hard. Believe in yourself enough to take that one small action today. And with every action, your belief will grow. With every belief, your life will expand. And one day, you'll look back and realize the person you became, the confident, capable, fluent version of you, was built not by waiting, but by choosing to act and choosing to believe. Your future self is waiting, and they're waiting for you to start now.